how to choose a marriage partner. And we need to know how to make the right choices. Where there are a lot of young men and young women and a lot of people who are desirous to marry. Most times, people get into trouble determining who to marry. And a lot of wrong choices can be made in the church. And no matter how Christian you are, if you make the wrong choice, you are going to have problems. Song of Solomon chapter 1, 16 and 17. In fact, much of my preaching is going to come from Song of Solomon. 16 and 17, it says, "Behold, you are handsome, my beloved. Yes, pleasant. Also, our bed is green. The beams of our houses are cedar, and our rafters of fir." Note the phrase, "Also, our bed is green." But the whole book of Song of Solomon is geared towards explaining the love relationship between Solomon and a certain woman whom the Bible describes as a Shulamite woman. The Bible does not specifically make us know who she was, but she seems to be the sweetheart of Solomon. There are indications that that woman was a black woman, for your information. If you read the beginning of chapter 1, you would know that she says, "I am black but beautiful." So there are indications she was a black woman, but that's not what we're dealing with today. That's for your information. But this relationship between Solomon and this woman is presented in the book of Song of Solomon poetically. Now, if you have a normal King James version, the whole book is written throughout as speech coming from one person. But in my Bible, for example, there are better clarifications because the things that are recorded in the Song of Solomon are not one person's speech. There are answers and response. Sometimes it's Solomon speaking, sometimes it's a Shulamite woman, sometimes it's the daughters of Jerusalem speaking, and sometimes it's the brothers of the Shulamite woman who are speaking. And I would try to make the distinctions for you as I preach. In this particular verse that we read, the one speaking is the woman, the Shulamite woman, because he says, "You are handsome." Now, a man cannot tell a woman, "You are handsome." So it definitely is a woman who is telling the man, "You are handsome." He says, "You are handsome, my beloved. Yes, pleasant. Also, our bed is green." At the beginning of the relationship between Solomon and this woman, this is one of the points that is made concerning the relationship between Solomon and the beloved. They had a green bed. Now, having a green bed has nothing to do with the paint or the polish that was used to make the bed, but it talks about the condition of their relationship. The green bed talks about freshness. It was not a brown bed, it was a green bed, talking about a bed that has not been defiled. In other words, the relationship between Solomon and this woman did not begin with a sexual relationship. It began as a friendship between a man and a woman. At the time Solomon married this woman, they had not had sex before. And so their bed was also described as green. It says the foundation for every relationship between Christians that eventually leads into marriage. For Christians, every relationship must first begin pure and end pure. For the unbeliever, when he gets into a relationship, he does not think of friendship. He first thinks of going to bed. When an unbeliever sees a woman, the first thing he thinks of is somebody he can go to bed with. And when an unbeliever woman sees a man, that's the first thing she sees. Or maybe first she sees a man I can take money from and then do the second thing with him. But in the church, going to bed with somebody is not the primary reason for a relationship. In the church, people should be able to have relationship and grow in the relationship until they marry before they think about having sexual relationships. Unfortunately, we live in a world where that system is not a very popular system. Because we live in a world which says that before you buy something, you must test the thing to see whether it will work. And so, by that logic, people say that before you marry, you must test the man and test the woman and see whether they will function. Now, I agree that you should test before you marry. But what kind of test are we talking about? Is it test to see whether the person can become pregnant? Or test to see whether the person is equipped as a woman? Or equipped as a man? That you don't need to test, you only need to believe. Because God, who made the male and the female, had made them that way, and you don't need any test to prove God's work. What God has done, He has done. So what kind of test are we talking about? It is more a test of character than a test of sex. It's a test to know whether my character suits this character or whether that character suits my character. Now, most of the time, because people begin on the wrong step, they don't ever get to know each other until they marry. Because their minds are preoccupied with one thing. And when they meet, there's only one agenda. And because of that, they never get to know each other. Then they marry and have shocks in their life. If you take time to do what Solomon did with this woman and have a green bed to begin with, it is the basis for a good relationship. Christians are different people. The basis for our decisions are different. The motivation for our actions are different. We see things different from the way the world sees things. The world sees things on a selfish, man-centered view. Christians see things more from God's perspective. What does God say? What is God demanding? Now, with that understanding in mind, I want to give us a few information concerning choosing a spouse. Please turn to chapter 4, Song of Solomon. Chapter 4, verse 9 and 10. It says, "You have ravished my heart." This is the man speaking. "You've consumed my heart. You've ravished my heart. My sister, my spouse." Underline that. My sister, my spouse. "You have ravished my heart with one look of your eyes, with one link of your necklace. How fair is your love, my sister, my spouse. How much better than wine is your love, and the scent of your perfumes than all spices." Now note the progression of relationship Solomon is talking about here. He says, "You have ravished my heart." Who? My sister, my spouse. He didn't say my spouse, my sister. In other words, before the woman ever became a spouse to Solomon, she had first become a sister to Solomon. In other words, they began a brother-sister relationship before it ended in husband-wife relationship. Now, for most of us, that first part of the relationship is not important to us. Because most of us think that the only time you talk to a woman is to propose to her that you want to marry her. And there are some of you that have been playing some reckless, risky games. Now you see somebody you don't know, you just admire her maybe in the choir or as an usher or somebody you see in the congregation and admire her, and you don't even have any relationship with the person. The first time you open your mouth to the person, you want to marry her. Marriage develops from friendship, courtship, before you have marriage. Before you ever think of marrying somebody, there should have been a time of friendship. And the time of friendship is the time when there are no strings attached to the relationship. It's the time when you know the person just as a friend. And at the time of friendship, most of the time, you may have a lot of people you are friends with. Because that's an open time. You have to have many options. And so as a Christian, for example, you are in the church and you are in a covenant family. You have 2-3 friends in the covenant family. You come to church, you have friends here, you have friends there, friends there. And out of that friendship, you gravitate closer and closer to a close network of people. In other words, if you start with a friendship with about 10 people, eventually you will close in on about 3 who are probables. Now, friendship is very important because during the time of friendship is the time you understand the person without a clouded mind. Because you see, romance disturbs focus. When you are romantically in love with somebody, you don't think. You become crazy and blind. And so if your relationship starts with romance, it's most likely you will overlook so many things. And because you overlook so many things, when you marry, you discover so many things you never saw. But if it starts with friendship, with no strings attached, then you are able to assess the person without any wrong understanding. Friendship is very, very important. Secondly, friendship is the time when you understand the opposite sex. Because you see, when you are a man, you don't grow naturally understanding women, except you have known how to understand your sisters. And if you are a woman, you don't grow naturally understanding men, except you first understood your brothers. But I can tell you that most of the time, our brothers and our sisters are the people we fight most, so we don't understand them. So, by the time you meet the opposite sex, you haven't learned anything about them. But during friendship, that is the time you get to know how women react, how men react, how men respond, how women respond, what they like and what they don't like. It's a general time for information gathering about people of the opposite sex. If you skip that, you will skip very, very vital information. And that's why Solomon said, "You have ravished my heart, my sister, my spouse. You were once my sister. My wife was once my sister. Not physically, but she was my Christian sister. She was a sister in the Lord. Sister in Christ. And when I visited her as a sister. And when you visit a sister, you don't talk about love, you talk about the word. When you visit a sister, you ask her about her job, because your mind is clear. You share the word with her and pray with her, and she with you, and you find out what she's doing, and find out the name of their dog and the cat and the name of the father and the uncles and everybody. Because when your rap finishes during the time, I tell you, there's some questions you're going to ask later and you look so foolish. How many dogs do you have? Does your dog bite? So the brown dog and the white dog, which is older? Amen. And when you start asking these things, it means that your raps are shorting. All you need to do is go back and reload your ammunition and come with more intelligent conversation. And most times when people don't have much friendship on their minds, that's when they ask some of these questions, because they just want to get through the questions quickly and just moving with the major question. Now, young people should start by first having friends and treating the friends as brothers and sisters. Many of us don't know how to treat women as sisters. So when any woman shows any liking for you or does any little favor for you, you always interpret it that they are in love with you. Because we don't know what a sister is. And so when on your birthday a sister buys a card for you or bakes a cake for you, and she's doing it with all purity as a sister to a brother, you always interpret it. And so you come to church on Tuesday and you think that the cake she brought you on Saturday was an indication of a message. So on Tuesday you corner her and throw the question. But we have to understand that as brothers and sisters, we have the opportunity to do things and to show brotherly love and brotherly affection without any strings attached and without any ulterior motive. And some of the sisters also have problems. The brother buys a blouse for you. Now don't buy brassiere, buy a blouse. The brother buys a blouse for you, and all of a sudden you go to sleep with thoughts. Maybe he's coming. We have the liberty as brothers and sisters to show affection one for another. It's a brotherly love. If you don't learn that, even after you marry, you have problems. Because you can't have brotherly relationship with any other person. Because to you, the only relationship between man and woman is romantic. But we must be able to develop friendship. Friendship. People you can talk to, people you can help and support, people you can counsel and receive counsel from, who are not necessarily going to be your spouse. As a matter of fact, there are people that you know that you can have very good friendship with, but you know you can never marry. And sometimes it becomes disappointing for the ladies when such a person proposes. It disturbs the whole relationship. Because this is a friend. And everybody needs a friend. Everybody needs people they can talk to and share with and just be free with, without any thought of marriage. And that is very important for us to develop, young men and older men. Young men especially, young women, this is not the time for proposal.